Family, we want to thank you for coming to Greenhill today to pay respects to our mother, Marie Burns Powell. She was known as Aunt Marie to most of you, Aunt Ree to the Burns clan, and Ree to her niece, Anita Sue.
And my dad, that's where I got it.
And her brother, Reese. Most of you have heard her speak from this pulpit on Memorial Day going back many years. You heard her say many times that she was more at home and happier right here on Greenhill in this church than anywhere else in the world. And she always threw her arms up. You heard her tell about the church bell being tolled at the funerals of her father and mother and brother, and their coffins being placed right here at the altar. In accordance with her wishes, half of her ashes were interred yesterday in the Powell Cemetery in Salem between her husband Bill and her baby Connie Ann, and half here today on Green Hill between her brother Harold and her twin Ogden Marion. Bunsey reminded me that in her last talk, Mom said she would be here one day, and they are here. This church was originally on the Burns farm. My mother's grandparents, Isaac Reese Burns and Judy Frances Hicks, met during the Civil War. He was in the Union militia, and her family supported the Confederacy. Isaac and Judy evidently made peace, or we would not be here. The church became a family enterprise. Two of Mom's uncles, Uncle Billy, William Hansford, and Uncle Emery, John Emery, and her father, Samuel Ellsworth, her brother William Reese, and cousin Martin first preached at this pulpit as young men before becoming ordained Methodist ministers. Since my mother passed away this summer on her brother Reese's birthday in the same way she lived, still joking and very close to God, my sisters Jana, Mary Beth, and I have been amazed at the number of people that she was in touch with. We knew she had many, many friends. As things became physically difficult for her these last few months, she told me a couple of weeks before she died, the one thing I can still do is stay in touch with all these people. I can do that, and I know I am supposed to do that. Her minister, Joel Harple, helped us understand how and why she still did that at her age. He said she was so filled with love for people because of her Christian faith, her love of Jesus, that she was compelled to keep reaching out to people all her life. That this Christian love, aside from making sense day by day in everyday life, brought her personally a happy and fulfilling life full of joy. Her generosity of spirit was rooted and first formed right here on Green Hill in this church on this farm. The families on Green Hill farmed together and prayed together. I know she is happy that the children and grandchildren of her friends and neighbors from Green Hill and Ireland are here today. Of all Mom's siblings, she was closest to her brother Harold, nicknamed Bunker. They were only 1 year apart. As the two youngest children, they did not have as many chores, so they ran through the fields together, made toys from acorns on moss beds in the woods, played in the white sand on the road. And all day, only 1 or 2 cars went by. Mom and Bunker were to start Salem College together in 1941, and he had a full athletic scholarship when he suddenly died after a baseball game in May. It broke her heart. As she told here many times, this church bell was tolled 18 times for Harold. Now, finally, the same bell will be tolled for Marie. I'm talking about the Burns family, but every family who comes up this mountain honors their ancestors. That's what Green Hill is all about. This theme song is Precious Memories. It continues from generation to generation. Members of these same families have raised their children and held their family together in hard times, risked their lives for their country in the military. Some did not come home. Spiritually, This is a powerful place. Our Greenhill ancestors made us, influenced us, and inspired us. They did not do everything right or the best way. Mom would probably call them and herself ornery sinners. Lord knows we don't do everything right, and we won't always do everything right. But every family can remember and be inspired by what they did do right. Mom's brother Reese in 1936, during the Great Depression at age 21, collected his brothers and sisters and made a home for them as a new rookie Methodist minister. Years later, in March 1965, he was the only white minister at the head of the Civil Rights March in Beckley. Anita Sue walked beside him. Mom was so proud of him, and he was so much fun. Anita Sue's not an ancestor, but Mom was proud of her too. Mom's brother Paul fought the Japanese in World War II in Alaska on Attu Island. The Army shipped his unit up there so fast, he arrived with training, gear, and clothes for the desert. In Erie, Pennsylvania, Mom's sister Bonita sat on her porch every evening all summer to talk to her neighbors. Her neighborhood got a little bit rougher. The neighbors got scared and stayed indoors. But Aunt Vaughn refused to be fearful, to be intimidated, and she still sat outside every evening. Her neighbors were much younger and said that when they saw Miss Laddie was the only person on the whole block outside, they knew they had to be out there too. They did, and nothing happened. The point is that we all have precious memories, our heritage, and we can use them to inspire us, guide us, and find joy. My cousin Mabel cannot be here, but I know Mom would want me to lift her up and ask that we keep Mabel in our prayers. Mabel's mother was Mom's oldest sister, Aunt Looney. She became the teacher in the little schoolhouse just down the road when she was 18. Mom and Mabel had a special bond. Mabel was raised here, and they both felt the same way about Greenhill. Mabel was the only Burns who never left. We are thankful that Mom's niece Marty and her family are here with us today. My mother loved her grandchildren, Sam, Philip, and Alyssa, as she would say, with all her heart. She was, and we are so proud of them. It was her great joy to watch them grow. I imagine that Mom's grandmother, Judy Francis, read a prayer or scripture here or taught Sunday school. Her father, Sam, preached here at this altar. So did Uncle Billy and Uncle Emery, her brother Reese, cousin Marvin. Ironically, she spoke here more than any of them. I knew she would not want to skip a generation, so now even I have spoken. And I know it brings my mother everlasting joy that her grandsons, Sam and Philip, will be the 5th generation of the Burns family to speak here in the Greenhill Church. Let me have one more story. Mother and I traveled to the country of Ireland in 1994. We agreed that the most beautiful place in that beautiful country was Sleehead on the tip of the Dingle Peninsula. And that is the westernmost point in all of Europe. And we have a picture here that you can see of that place. As the Irish say, picture in your mind's eye, as we drove out, on the left was the ocean with white beaches. Ahead was a winding road on the mountainside, and on the right, broad green meadows rising up to craggy mountaintops. The meadows were full of round stone huts called beehive huts. They were 1,000 years old. Straight ahead, out in the ocean, were 3 dark islands pointing up out of the sea with rough cliffs and peaks like church steeples. These were the Blasket Islands. Rain would blow in from the ocean, the sun would come out, and we saw many rainbows over the strait between the islands and the peninsula. On the hillside was a big gray farmhouse B&B. We rang the bell, and a young woman came out and took us up to our rooms. But she would not look at us, she would not speak to us, she wouldn't even answer our questions. I just left her alone. I didn't try to talk. I didn't know what her problem was. But that was not my mother's way. The next morning, Mom got up early and went down and helped the girl fix breakfast. I left for the day to explore the common farm. Mom stayed and rested, and they spent the whole day talking. It turned out the girl's grandmother had died 2 weeks before, and her mother had died 1 year before. All three had lived there together. When we left the next morning, the young woman was laughing and crying and hugging Mom. She even smiled and said goodbye to me. The Blasted Islands are famous. For hundreds of years, fishing villages were there, but life was hard and dangerous. And finally, in 1953, the last inhabitants moved to the mainland. They spoke Gaelic, not English. Tomas O'Crohan wrote a book about these people, and in it he quoted in Gaelic, Ni bahid ar lithid aris an. That translates, not will be her kind again there, or we will not see her likes again. This day, we mark the close of my mother's generation. She is the last of those Depression-era children who ran on this mountaintop, picked wild strawberries right across the road here, gathered up eggs to take to Deck Brand's store. These were the children who grew up on the farms, in the little schoolhouse, and in this church on Greenhill. They leave us a beautiful legacy, and we will honor it. We will not see their likes again. Buzz, could you lead us in precious memories?
Sacred past My name is Philip. I'm Marie's second grandson. We live in Northern California now, a long ways away from here. But I have very fond memories of both Lake Floyd and of Greenhill from growing up. Right now I'm in the middle of my first full year as a high school teacher. I've been told that Marie taught a plethora of subjects back in the day, from shorthand, history, geography, business English, girls, phys ed, and typing when that came around. I also am the head coach of our cross-country team, and I even heard Marie talk about her days coaching girls softball at the Industrial House before she married Bill. Industrial Home. She said that she took all the girls to see the Chicago White Sox play, and she was surprised at how they never missed an infield grounder. Her experience was rather different. But Marie always wanted either Sam or me to become a preacher, just like her Uncle Billy, her dad Sam, and brother Reese, and all the other gentlemen that Dave talked about. Where we are right now, I'm teaching high school religion. I'm in a pastoral ministries graduate program. Sam and I both work with our young adult group and as counselors in the youth ministry program at our church. And Sam works in the wine industry, so between the two of us, we pretty much have all the bases covered. This afternoon, I'd like to reflect on two main life lessons that Marie Powell taught me growing up. The first is about never giving up on people. She used to tell the story of a boy in her 7th grade geography class named Phil Maxwell. She gave a states and capitals test, and as she was walking through the aisles checking on them, she saw a little cheat sheet slipped under his exam. She calmly reached down, removed the cheat sheet, crumpled it up, and threw it away. She told us that she never thought she could trust that boy again. After she got back from 2 trips overseas, first to Ireland in '94 and then to Israel in '95, she had her first major heart attack. And guess who her cardiologist was? Phil Maxwell. And she swore up and down that that man saved her life. The second is a guy our age named Dustin Lister. He grew up at the lake with Sam and me, and we would enjoy running around with him, causing trouble every summer. Biking to Dairy Queen and back. The way back was a lot more eventful. Playing basketball, fishing, winning road bowling competitions on the 4th of July as members of the California High Rollers team. And then Dustin got into drugs and was eventually arrested and imprisoned a few years ago. While everyone else pitied his situation, Marie wrote him letters in prison to check in on him and encourage him. By complete luck, we ran into Dustin this morning as some of our crew was walking around the lake, and they told me he was just down the road painting a stairwell. He told me that he's got a steady job working construction. He lives in Nutter Fort with his girlfriend and their 4-month-old baby named Landon. He's come a heck of a long way. Marie would be very proud, and she was. She believed in people long after others had given up on them, kind of like Jesus did. Sinners, strangers, outcasts, aliens. Marie clearly understood Jesus' words in Matthew 25, that what you do unto the least of these, you do unto me. So what I've learned is to not give up on people, even if everybody else has. Whether it's a senior guy in my world religions class who's been written off as a stoner for 4 years, or the freshman boy on the cross-country team who's never been on a sports team before and doesn't think he can be any good. Marie taught me to commit myself to those kids, to looking out for them and challenging them to believe in themselves. The second life lesson that I'm finally coming to terms with is to appreciate the simple things in life. Growing up, she didn't have any other choice than to live simply. Hand-me-down clothes, sharing a bedroom with multiple siblings, playing outside all summer long, walking to and from that one-room schoolhouse. She told me that they used to get a pencil and an orange for Christmas, and they didn't even know they were poor. My experience growing up in Los Altos, California was hardly relatable. That's why I think Sam and I enjoyed our summers here at the lake and up here at Greenhill so much. No schedules, no tests, no rules, no stress. Marie's routine was simple. Now, she worked many years before we were around as a school teacher and as a full-time mom, and those days were long and arduous. But in her days of retirement, she woke up early, got her coffee, read her Bible, and spent most of the morning writing letters and talking on the phone with all those people that we didn't even know half of. She'd watch CNN when TVs came around. She'd have her lunch, watch her soaps, and take a nap. Then she would head down to the clubhouse, where we'd been most of the morning, and go around Middle Pier on her noodle. Then back to the house for dinner and back into her beloved bed. In Luke 12:22-31, Jesus says this: "Don't worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. There's more to life than food, and more to the body than clothing. Consider the ravens, they neither plant nor harvest, they have no silo or barn, and yet God feeds them. You are worth so much more than birds. Who among you by worrying can add a single moment to your life? If you can't do such a small thing, why worry about the rest? Notice how the lilies grow. They don't wear themselves out with work, and they don't spin cloth. But I say to you that even Solomon in all his splendor wasn't dressed like one of these. And if God dresses grass in the field so beautifully, even though it's alive today and gone tomorrow, how much more will God do for you? Don't chase after what you will eat and what you will drink. Stop worrying. All the nations of the world long for these things. Your Father knows that you need them. Instead, desire His kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well." Marie was in tune with nature just as Jesus was in tune with nature. Marie knew how to live simply just like Jesus did. And Marie knew how to rely on God just like Jesus did. Now, the Silicon Valley in the 21st century doesn't offer many opportunities for simplicity. But I make sure to pause, especially in the last 3 months, during my busy life, when I see a rainbow, a sunrise, or a hummingbird, all things that remind me of my grandma. Late in her life, she began to embrace these words from Luke more and more. Her motto, as many of you know, was evident of this: one day at a time, sweet Jesus. Also, her diet of hot dogs, ice cream cones, and wild turkey burgers. She was clearly living for something much bigger than this world. And now she's living that life, out of this world into the next. At the end of the passage from Luke I read a minute ago, Jesus says this: "For where your treasures are, your heart will be also." Marie didn't leave behind many earthly treasures because her heart was set on things of the kingdom. No, what she left behind was a family that extended far beyond the Burns and the Powell bloodlines. And as we gather here together to celebrate her life, it's fitting that we're in this church up on this hill, among this consanguinity. I thank you all for sharing this special time here with our family. And I challenge you, as I've challenged myself, to let the light of Marie continue to live in all of us. Thank you.
That's awesome. And I asked that I could go next, so that I don't have to go after two Pompeii boys, because I found out they're amazing speakers. My name is Jill, and I am Marie's niece, and I'm from Ohio, but growing up in the summertime, it's really the only place that we ever came was to Lake Floyd to spend holidays and summer vacations and to, keep close with the family and our cousins. And it's interesting how when you reflect upon somebody after they have died, you really come to start to understand them. And I feel like that's kind of happened to me in the day that I have been here, with my cousins, because I was not able to make it to the other memorial service. And just the things that I always innately knew about Aunt Marie, I know so much more now, and it just means so much to me. When I think about Aunt Marie, I think that to me she was the same from the moment that I have any memory of her until the last time I saw her. I don't think she looked any different. I don't think she acted any different. And I hope that somebody can say that about me someday. I just again, she was, if anything ever bothered her, she surely didn't show it. And if she had an ache or a pain, she surely didn't show it. And so, she's just timeless. And and I think of the things that I've thought of since she passed. Just that I want to be that kind of a person. I want to be the kind of person that she was, even in a small way. I can never be that kind of a person, but at least I can aspire to be. And so as I think about that, and I certainly would say that the first and second generation of her family certainly are the first to begin that, what I see as a ripple effect. As a ripple effect from the way that she lived and the things that her family learned from her, and certainly now in their lives and in the grandchildren's lives, and that ripple effect is continuing even though that she's not here. And you think about all the people, that's something I just never realized, all the people that she touched so deeply, so profoundly, life-changing ways. And to me, she was my Aunt Marie, but she was special and she was joyous, but I realize now that she actually changed the lives of many people. And isn't that what we're called to do? We're called to help people and make a change for somebody, a positive change. And I think that I'm just going to be hopefully inspired by her life to touch other people in that way. And my new bracelet would be not what would Jesus do, but what would Marie do? I think that, and again, it's so close, so close. So anyway, I didn't plan to say any of those things. I was just going to read a poem, but I've really been inspired. And I'm just trying to keep up with the poem. So anyway, I'm going to read a poem that somebody gave to me when my father passed away, and I was very, very touched by it, and I think it's very appropriate for Aunt Marie. So it's called To Those I Love. If I should ever leave you, whom I love, to go along the silent way, grieve not, nor speak of me with tears, but laugh and talk of me as if I were beside you there. I'd come if I could find a way. But would not tears and grief be barriers? And when you hear a song or see a bird I loved, please do not let the thought of me be sad. For I am loving you just as I always have. You were so good to me. There are so many things I wanted still to do, so many things to say to you. Remember that I did not fear. It was just leaving you that was so hard to face. We cannot see beyond, but this I know. I loved you so, 'twas heaven here with you. We love you, Aunt Marie.
My name is Sam. I'm the older of the two grandsons. You heard my brother speak earlier. Gianna's sons. And like he said earlier, Marie, from the time we could understand what it meant to be a pastor, was trying to get us to be pastors, to be preachers. So I think she might make her smile to have us behind this pulpit, but I'll probably migrate down. If you can't hear me, just raise your hand. I know it's a small church. As my brother mentioned, we're part of a young adult group at our church in Los Altos, California, in the Silicon Valley. Our church made it a big focus to reach this young adult generation, a branded young adult, 18 to 35, where you leave the home and go to college and discover yourself, and church becomes less important. And it isn't until you have a family and have kids, which in the Silicon Valley is getting more towards 30, 35 years old, that you decide church again is important. And you bring your kids back to church. And there's this lost gap of young adults. And so our church has made it a priority to focus on that and to get us back into the church. And so my brother and I have taken a big leadership role in that. And we were discussing the other night at one of our meetings, what's so good about the good news? We call it the good news. The gospel translates to the good news. What's so good about the good news? And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And those of you that know Marie know that joy was her word. And joy was how she lived her life. And you know what it was from that foundation of faith? That she lived her life. And that's where that joy originated, and it radiated and it penetrated not only hearts but the world. Marie is the reason that my brother and I found faith to begin with. When we moved to California when I was 5, my brother was 2.5. We lived in the south side of Chicago before that, and church, well, we don't have a lot of memories, but I know we didn't go to church. But when we moved to California, my mom and dad decided that it was important that we started finding a church to raise our kids in. At that point, my brother and I, neither of us knew the difference between Methodist or Baptist, Presbyterian. We called Grandma, and my mom said, Marie, we want to find a church. Where do you think we should start? And she said, go to the Methodist, they'll take anything. And you know what they took us? They took that young family from South Chicago. They took that professor and that gray-haired woman and 2 little kids. And we found our faith there. We got involved in youth choir. We went to Sunday school. We got involved in making dinner and going to big church barbecues. Grandma, church on Sunday wasn't different or out there or weird, or why are we getting dressed up? Why are we getting up early on Sunday mornings? Church on Sunday became something that we looked forward to. We looked forward to sitting next to Grandma in the pews and having her reach down and give us each a $1 bill to make sure that we put something in the offering plate as they went by. As we got a little bit older and started thinking a little bit more than getting dragged or getting dressed up in our whatevers, faith development became the next step. Every time we would come out to Lake Floyd for the summer, Marie would call us and say, what can you boys bring to the service? How can you be a part of it? She was in us in our Sunday school when we were young enough, but when we began to learn how to play the piano, we began to get in the church choir. She wanted us to sing and she wanted us to play. And every summer for about 5 or 6 years, she made sure that we were in that service. That we were on the piano, we were singing together. We're not great at singers. But you know what? That didn't matter to her. She was beaming from year to year. Marie taught Sunday school. Marie read her Bible. Marie called her friends and talked faith. Marie read the translations, or what's the word I'm looking for? The interpretations of what the scriptures meant. Faith wasn't something that you are given and you say thank you. Faith was something that you develop. And she instilled that both in my brother and I to make it something personal and not just something that you wear a tie to. And then you stand up and you're supposed to stand up and sit down, you're supposed to sit down and say the correct words and sing the correct hymns. From there it began to be teaching. From there it began to be understanding what is Methodism and how do we teach that. And John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, on a boat to Georgia, was questioning his faith. He was supposed to be an Anglican minister, an Anglican priest, and he was supposed to be going to America to convert the souls there, and he was questioning, he was frustrated. And he asked one of the Moravians he was on the boat with, he said, how do you keep doing what you're doing? How do you keep the faith going, the fire going? And the guy said, John, preach faith until you have it. And when you do, preach it because you do. And those words have stuck to me as I begin to get into this idea of teaching faith. We don't always have the answers. I don't always have the right things to say. I don't always know the right scripture passages to look up. I don't always know the right way to reconcile, the right way to comfort somebody. But you know what? I know Jesus. And I know God. And so I'm going to teach. And I know that my grandmother was really proud of my brother and I for working with the youth in our church, for working with the young adults now. When we're a larger church where we have 5 pastors on staff, and when all those pastors go out of town, they ask me to get up there and to welcome the church, and to lead the prayers, and to do the offering. And I haven't been asked to preach yet, but maybe down the road. But when we go on these trips, we work with the youth at our church every summer. The youth put on a musical, and they tour that musical around. And every 4 years, they go international. And this happened to be one of those summers that the youth went international. My brother and I were both asked to be counselors on that trip. And not only counselors, but we were asked to be those counselors that prepared all the morning devotions together. We were asked to be the counselors that talked a lot to the kids about faith. Because at that age, it's about the community, it's about love, it's about bringing them together. And faith, although it's the center, isn't the one thing to talk about all the time. My brother and I were asked to bring the faith to these kids. The day before we left for England this summer was when Marie passed away. And as the family made arrangements and made travel plans and prepared the service, my brother and I felt hopeless. Got to get on that plane and go to England and to Ireland. Not to be there for the service. And yet, as we told my mother goodbye that afternoon when she was about to fly off to West Virginia, she said, I've spoken to Marie this morning. Marie told me, Jana, don't you dare come out here. And you make sure those boys get on that plane to go with those youth to spread the message. Teaching faith is the next step. And you teach it because you've been taught it. You teach it until you're dead set. And you teach it more because you are. And as I'm getting further and further into this, it's not just about saying the right words, it's not just about telling the kids what to do and telling the young adults and planning mission trips or planning community service outreach. It's about the person that you are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's about living the faith. And that's what Marie did on a daily basis. From calling one of her best friends every morning and reading scripture together, to keeping in touch with people, to making sure that she was on more church committees than humanly possible, and she hated it. But she was there. She loved like Jesus loved. She forgave like Jesus forgave. She went to the prisons, as you heard my brother talk about. She went to the hospitals. She welcomed the foreigners into her home. At the end of our show, the show that the kids performed, the closing song was called Hope Springs. And the whole show was about how you can't follow Jesus, or claim to follow Jesus, and not go to the tough places. Not go to the kid that's just been busted, arrested, and in prison. Not sit next to the hospital patients that are on their last dying breath. Not go to funerals every week, it seemed, for the last couple of years of her life. You can't claim to follow Jesus and not go to the hard places. And from those hard places is where you encounter the cross. And from the cross is where hope comes from. And the last lines of the show that we performed the day of the memorial service, the show started at 7 o'clock in England, which was 2 o'clock in West Virginia. The service started at 1:30. It was the exact same time. We were in a church, a small church with glass windows. And oh, you know, there was a thunderstorm. There was a thunderstorm with lightning, and that's what Marie loved. And the last lines of the show are, light shines, joy sings, and hope springs. Marie shined light everywhere she went. The joy in her heart and the joy in her life sung from every crevice. And hope is springing up all around us. Thank you so much for being here. For loving Marie, for learning from Marie, and for taking her with you everywhere you go.
You've heard the word joy, and she was always so joyful, so positive. I just thank the Lord that she gave us that optimism to carry us through life. But I didn't realize, even though there are joy Christmas ornaments and joy wall hangings and joy pillows all around the house, I didn't realize until just the last few years what that meant to her. And so joy is, J stands for Jesus. Put Jesus first in your life. O is for others. Live your life in service to others. And Y is put yourself last. And that's really how she led her life, in that order. So I just want to share with you a little poem that I found. I've been making a lot of trips up from North Carolina, working on her house. This one just was in her bathroom, and I picked it up. It wasn't marked or anything. I just picked it up and it fell open to this page. Now, I will have to say she did earmark it, dog ear it, so. But I knew this was special to her. I just want to share that with you. Oh, the sheer joy of it, living with thee, God of the universe, Lord of a tree, maker of mountains, lover of me. Oh, the sheer joy of it, breathing thy air, morning is dawning, dawn every care. All the world singing, God's everywhere. Oh, the sheer joy of it, walking with thee, out by the hilltop, down by the sea. Life is so wonderful, life is so free. Oh, the sheer joy of it, working with God, running his errands, waiting his nod, building his heaven on common sod. Oh, the sheer joy of it, ever to be, living in glory, living with thee, Lord of tomorrow, lover of me. say thank you all for being here. We didn't expect the coffee and the pastries, but we really, really appreciate it, and it just shows us your love for our mother. Thank you.
My gray hair on you. Got it from Marie long before you were born, so take it from Marie. This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. She said that to us so many times. She loved this church. She loved giving her speech and would work and work and work on it all year long and read it over the phone to us and then tear it up and make it over. Change it up and write it again. She loved each one of you as well. Will you please pray with me? Eternal God, you have shared with us the life of Marie. Before she was ours, she is yours. For all that Marie has given us to make us what we are, for that of her which lives and grows in each of us, and for her life that in your love will never end. We give you thanks. And now we offer Marie back into your arms. Comfort us in our loneliness. Strengthen us in our weakness. And give us courage to face the future unafraid. Draw those of us who remain in this life closer to one another, and make us faithful to serve one another. And give us to know that peace and joy, which is eternal life, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Wayne Marshall's going to ring the bell as we walk to the graveside. And I think Aunt Marie would be kind of proud to know that one gong of the bell represented 1 year of her life. And I know from hearing Mabel's talk, and Aunt Marie's too, that some of those years were tough. Some of those early years were tough. But she endured. Somehow or other, that endurance in those early years must have had something to do with making her such a powerful personality. And she loved us. It was wonderful. When she would come to the Ireland church, we would always ask her to say something because we knew she'd always say something good about us. So as the bell tolls, would you go in a peaceful kind of way and give full consideration to what a wonderful life that we get to celebrate today.